Oh,
Hello, welcome to the Learning Tree Book Club monthly meeting. Sorry we're late this month. We had some difficulties. And I'm Meredith Coleman McGee here in Jackson, Mississippi, a member of the Learning Tree Book Club. And we also have with us Vicki Jenkins, who is also a member, and she's going to be the first reader. Thank you. You ready, Vic?
you ready?
Yeah. Show us the cover of the book.
The book is from the Black When Black Folks Was Colored. And I received this from the Afro-American History Society Incorporated from Pensacola, Florida.
Okay.
Road Trip, Claudia Macmillan Williams. It was in the mid-50s, and my brother and I, aged 12 and 10, were headed to New York City. My parents were enrolled in the graduate programs at Columbia University, financed by the state of Florida. Due to segregation, residents who wanted to graduate in degrees in the fields not offered by Florida A&M Florida A&M University were given a subsidy so that Columbia costs the same as Florida A&M. The car was loaded, luggage rack on the top, with all things one needed to set up a campus apartment. This was before the day the minivan. This was before the day of the minivan, and this was before the day of the minivan, and we needed it. Towels, sheets, pillows, cases, pots, pans, dishes, brooms, courses, TV, etc. The middle of the back seat was loaded with ceiling and other in each other on places of the window, ceiling fans in each other places of the window. Before we left home, Daddy memorized the route, then passed the map over to us. He called us the navigators, and convinced us that if we misread the map, we would never go to New York City. When we started to push each other, as siblings often do. But Daddy would stop at the gas station. This was before the self-serve. Therefore, the first question was the attendant was my children use the bathroom? If the answer was no, he would say thank you and pull off. Sometimes he would say 2 or 3 stops before one who would say that failed, he would have to pull off the road and we would go into the woods. There was always a roll of toilet tissue in the back seat. There were no restaurants for Black folks, so we had to pack enough food to make it out of the South. There was no readily available bag of ice, so lunch, fried chicken, and dinner with peanut butter sandwiches. We munched on cookies, chips, peanuts. Usually we could find a Coke machine. Sometimes we would go across the tracks and find a country shack, which was a tree in the front yard. We would ask the Black owner for permission to go out the blanket to eat under the tree. They would always say yes. They not only were in large cities as Blacks planned, the only Black motels were in the large cities. So Daddy planned a trip to the big city, like Atlanta. But if things went wrong, we had to find a rooming house, share the bathroom. So we never ever was there. Finally, we would reach New Jersey Turnpike. We were so excited. We had run into lunch counter and mid-city there with our feet dangling from the stool was a new experience we had longed for. But one that was never possible in Pensacola. Summer in the city made it all worthwhile. We walked around looking at the skyscrapers, riding in the subway, maneuvering in the hustle and bustle of the city. Life by candy sale. Life by candy sale at Knox, almost everywhere, every quarter. Living on the 8th floor of the student housing, riding the elevator, which people sleeping on the benches in the Central Park, standing over the grates, the sidewalk, sitting on the corner, blow over our legs, us going through the front door of the window. My love of the barracks, though the front door at the movie. The front door at the I can't even say that right. The Central Park attending the greats, stepping in the bench on the Central Park, standing over the grates on the sidewalk, feeling hot air blow over my legs, and going through the front door of the movie theater. My love of Broadway started when the Interstate Fair came to Pensacola. once a year, and that was the highlight of the season. But Coley Island was so much more exciting than the fair. It was there all of the time. What was wonderful ways to spend the summer. Every Christmas, every year at Christmas, Monterey, my family would attend the 6 o'clock service in our church, Greater Union Missionary Baptist Church. After church, we would go to my Uncle Buddy's and Aunt Lily's house for breakfast. My other aunts and uncle, cousins, and some other members of our church would also go to their house. My Aunt Lily was known with her really good cooking for breakfast, which was our big meal at Christmas, considering of bacon, sausage, eggs, grits, pancakes, homemade biscuits, which homemade dessert would be juice and coffee, chocolate, cider. I'm hungry. Just writing this. I am hungry just writing this. Anyway, my Uncle Buddy, deacon of our church. Anyway, my Uncle Buddy, a deacon of our church, always blessed the food. Actually, he prayed, boy, and he did pray. He prayed the longest prayer. He blessed the food, the family, and I think he called everybody's family name by name. He prayed for the misfortunate. He prayed for the sick and the shut in, and prayed for those in prisons. And thank God for Jesus, for the church, for everything we had, and for us children again. He prayed for us children, Jesus, and again. He prayed for us peace in the world. He then began to thank God again for everything and everybody, and never really got around to blessing the food. He prayed so long, and when I peeked with my little cousin, he had fixed her plate, finished her food, and was asleep at the table with the jelly smeared all over her face. He was done praying. All the kids had smeared them. All the kids were anxious to finish the breakfast and go to our homes because we didn't see open for our Christmas present before going to church. Finally, after all that praying, we could eat. All of the children gobbled down their food and did little praying of our own. We were praying that the adults would hurry up, stop talking, and to leave. Stop talking, eat, and leave. Finally, we got to go home. Our tree was usually a real pine smelling tree, except for that 1 year. They bought an ugly, non-smelling silver thing. The thing had to be put together, and the puzzle never did look like a tree. The adults were really excited by that tree. We were kids and looking at it in something other than the space something other than a space object. We got the same thing for Christmas every year. Same thing for Christmas every year. I became a teenager. That beautifully whipped supper heavy box always contained a pair of Union steel boots bearing old roller skates. Although I always knew what was, I eagerly opened up the box, and the skates with shoes would have flat bed and rear metal support for the heels on our shoes. They had leather straps that buckled around the ankle to keep your shoe and foot secure. There were vertical metal clamps that the toe area to attach to your shoes. The skates came with a skate key so that you could attach your old shoe, usually penny loafers or saddle Oxfords, to the bed of the skates and straighten and tighten it to fit your shoes. Tied it with ribbon yarn and an old shoelace was the skate key, was worn around your neck so that you could retighten your skates to the shoes when needed. I wore my skates proudly like a medal. It was my silver emblem of freedom, of adventure, and fun filled with spent with friends, fun filled spent with friends. After all of the presents we opened, which was all included in the nuts and candy, I was allowed to go visiting with others, going to meet waiting for my friends, Beverly Mims, Elizabeth, Sarah, and other neighborhood friends to come skating my way. They were not skating too. They got skates too. While we waited, we would attach my old skates and yellow saddle shoes to the bed of my skates, remove my skates from around my neck, and tighten to the skates of my shoes. Adjust the tightening to the skates, and the shoes were welcome. Some kids will put their shoes on and then their skates, but I much more agile. I could get my new shoe skate without falling. While I waited, I skated forward and backwards, making that turn and figure eights, And with that, the ice skates I saw on TV.
Well, I'll read for a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Did you come to a stopping point?
Huh?
You come to a stopping point?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What's the name of that story you just read?
What's the name of the story?
Uh-huh.
Well, this is the first chapter. It was called Road Trip.
Oh, Road Trip. Who wrote it?
Claudia McMillan Williams.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I had
tell-
one of those.
huh?
Go ahead.
And then and the next trip was every year at Christmas.
Okay.
But
Okay. I had one of those volumes. I think I had volume 3. Uh-huh. I'm,
okay,
I'm not sure which one you have.
okay,
Uh-huh. Okay then. So I'm gonna read a few pages up. Can you see it?
okay.
Midnight Moon. You read that
Oh,
one? Uh-huh. So this is chapter 1, Chula.
oh, okay.
He's the main character.
Oh,
Oh, hey, Deacon Brown, how are you?
I'm doing good, Marilyn.
Okay, wonderful. Oh yeah, what you got on your wall? You got a lot of calendars and community events, huh?
Huh.
Oh, I see. I see.
how you doing, Tim?
Hey, Dickie. A lot of stuff on the wall.
Yeah, I see. Mm-hmm. That's the wall of an activist.
Yeah.
Always doing something in the community. Well, good to have you. So I'm reading Midnight Moon. Okay. By midnight, residents of Midnight, Humphrey County, Mississippi. You know what that is, don't you, Deacon?
What about Indianola? What you say?
Yeah, I know you know where it is, Vicky. It's in Humphreys County, down there by
I know.
Belzona. That's where
Oh,
I
midnight
know.
is.
I know where because the Keith, that's his district. South, Central Mississippi.
Okay, yeah, in the Delta. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so 206 residents are a peaceful community with 206 residents. Wow, that's smaller than some of our neighborhoods. Way smaller. Okay, asleep or dreaming. Most establishments close before dusk dawn. Dusk dark, I'm sorry. Eddie G and his wife Pearlie Mae's wall clock ticks at midnight every night without ceasing. The light sound of tick tock, tick tock, tick tock roars softly every morning. Eddie G responds to the sound, but Pearlie Mae's sleep is unbroken for 4 more hours. In 1985, a handful of citizens, including Eddie G and Pearlie Mae, were farmhands. Their workday starts early, really early. When Eddie G's father, E. George, was a sharecropper in the 1930s, there were over 5,600 farms in Humphreys County. By 1960, half of the county's workforce were agricultural workers, harvesting and picking cotton, soybeans, winter wheat, rice, and oats. In the 1980s, the county became a catfish haven full of catfish ponds, ran primarily by white families. Humphreys County, located in the Mississippi Delta, known historically as the most southern place on earth due to racial, cultural, and economic history, stretches from Tunica, south of Memphis, to Sharkey County, below Vicksburg. During slavery and afterward, the land was plowed with mules. Land was cultivated with hoes, and everything was harvested by hand. But today, equipment has primarily replaced human labor. Before the Civil War, steamboats along the Mississippi River helped expand population and economic development to port cities such as New Orleans, Memphis, St. Louis, and Natchez. Everything from human cargo to cotton and sugar was transported to different ports. Riverboat cruises reserved for the well-to-do remained trendy in Vicksburg. During the 1950s, local whites continued to oppose Negro economic advancement, and they violently opposed equal rights, especially Negro suffrage. Reverend George Lee, a local minister, and Gus Courts, a businessman, organized the NAACP branch and registered 100 new black registrants. Lee refused to heed to Klan threats and was the victim of a drive-by shooting in 1955. His vehicle crashed into a Belzoni home. His funeral was held outside the grounds of the local church to accommodate the mass crowd, which included a black congressman from Detroit. After the Civil Rights era, catfish production peaked. Humphreys County is full of history. The county folk pay homage to a host of natives, blues musicians, Elmore James and Pinetop Perkins, and jazz musician George Cartwright. Lawrence Gordon, a native of Belzoni, was the president of 20th Century Fox. He produced notable movies Die Hard, Predator, Field of Dreams, Hellboy, Watchmen, and Boogie Nights. Midnight doesn't have a skyscraper, a regional fair, a movie house, or a three-star hotel. It has a zip code, 39115, and a post office. Buford runs the post office like his parents before him. Mary Agnes, the only school teacher in the community, dreamed community where she owns a small parcel of land in a 5-room row house. 2 houses from Eddie G. Pearlie Mae will become incorporated. Mary Agnes envisions paved streets and growth and prosperity. She is a native of Greenwood, Mississippi, where streets are paved. She was not used to dusty roads. Washing a muddy car is a bit much. She envisions everyone in Humphrey County, Mississippi, knowing her name when the population surpasses 300, then 500. Mary Agnes' student Chula, who lived next door between she and Eddie G. and Pearlie Mae, had her mind set on becoming a better version of her school teacher, Mary Agnes, and as beautiful as her mother, Vivian, known to all as Viv. Chula plans to become a school teacher, a change agent, an influencer, a large landholder, a wife, a mother, beautician, and a female politician. All of Chula goals didn't emerge at once. She made good grades and served as an unofficial classroom tutor of sorts. In 1985, Mary Agnes suggested the girl's first potential profession, school teacher. Mary Agnes felt Chula was destined to be a teacher. In 1985, teacher was the pillar in the community. Mary Agnes certainly fit that bill. Chula was standing out front. She was smart, common sense. At age 4, Chula could distinguish a pine tree from an oak tree. She was pointing at flowers, rainbows, the moon, butterflies, the snowflakes. She was valedictorian of her 5th grade class. By high school, the local business class expanded in Midnight. Chula's older peers accomplished amazing things without college degrees. They discovered business opportunities during and after high school. By then, Chula wished on the moon simply for the wisdom to recognize a good opportunity. In Midnight, teachers teach, and the community village govern. Okay, I'm gonna start there, Vicky.
Okay. Let's see. I know what you're talking about now, because that was south of us. It was you said between Tunica and Belzona.
Um, um, okay, you know where Belzona is, Midnight is in Silver City. That's Humphreys County.
Yeah, I know.
It's before you, if you come from Yazoo, it's before you get to Indianola. And Indianola is in Sunflower County, right?
Right. But the difference is I don't go through Belzona and up in that direction. I go past Chula, go to Greenwood, and come back on and come back to Clarksville on that side. I don't go through Belzona and Midnight and Silver City. I don't go that way.
When you going home, oh yeah.
Huh?
Oh, I see. When you go into Clarksdale,
But I
you
go to
go
Clark,
through Chula and Greenwood. I see what you're saying.
Yazoo, Chula, Greenwood. That's the direction that's the way I go. But now I
Well,
know
that's
other
good to know because that's so it's quicker to go that way from Jackson. I mean through Chula
to
to
me it does.
Clarksdale.
To me it does. Because
Okay.
once I leave here, I go Yazoo City and I go Chula. Chula is halfway between Jackson and Clarksville. That's halfway. I go to Chula, Greenwood, and get back on 49 and go the direction of Clarksville. Now that's the
Yeah, but if you were going to Greenville, you would go through Belzoni and Indianola,
right.
which is different because you know it's a fork right there. This
Yeah.
way for Chula and this way for Belzoni. Right. I mean
And
they
so I go up through Chula and go this way. Go to Chula and go to Greenwood and come back. Yeah. Now to me, that's closer than going to Belzona and Greenville. I guess it's closer to me is going through Chula.
right. Okay, you reading?
Okay. Only as the cook or waiter or the colored servant, Georgia McCorfy Smith. Before it closed, I love to eat crispy, golden brown catfish at the Cock of the Walk restaurant, 9 Mile Road, Pensacola. You lived in Pensacola, didn't you?
I went to college there and lived there. Yeah.
Did you know of that Cock of the Walk restaurant? Do you know of that?
In Pensacola?
Uh-huh.
Not really. I probably know where on what side. It's probably downtown, but I'm not for sure. I can't
Okay.
remember.
I just remember this is one restaurant that they were talking in the book. It was in before it closed. I love to eat crispy golden brown catfish at the Cock of the Walk restaurant, the 9 Mile Road in Pensacola. It sure was delicious. But when I grew up in Jim Crow, Mobile, Alabama, in the 40s and 50s, I could have loved it all. I wanted to eat there. There was no way I could have gone to a restaurant unless it was a restaurant for colored people. The Jim Crow laws were that the separated Black Americans from white Americans. Large, bloody printed signs that made it clear which restaurant were for colored people and which were for white people. Jim Crow laws. legalized the strongly enforced racial segregation in southern states. Today, I call the Jim Crow laws. The back of the bus law became that were the laws that had forced Black people to sit in the back of the bus. And they were in the same laws as did not allow me to eat at Morrison's cafeteria during my childhood. Besides, unless a restaurant was on Davis Avenue, Mobile's largest criminal and commercial colored neighborhood, there were no colored restaurants to visit, but there were several billboards showing a smiling colored chef in a circular floppy white chef's hat and a double-breasted white chef's jacket, serving delicious food in Morrison's cafeteria. But no colored people were allowed to eat there. Only the coloreds were allowed to wait there. And in other words, they were colored servants were allowed to in Morrison's cafeteria during my childhood days in Mobile, Alabama. Another image was that it stands vividly in my mind were swimmers in the pool near my home. Only whites were allowed in the pool. And it looked beautifully clad. Girls were having so much fun as they dove merrily into the pool. But I knew that I, colored girl, was not allowed in the pool. It was a pool for whites only. But Martin Luther King eventually had those whites only signs torn down. I am very grateful that Martin Luther King was brave enough to face Jim Crow. King stood courageously and cried again that the Americans must provide liberty and justice for all. Americans, the truth was there. Already was a liberty and justice for all. Americans, except for dark-skinned Americans. King must have been born with an extra sensory freedom, with an extra sense of freedom and bravery. In fact, King's bold stance against Jim Crow super extra sense of bravery. King had the face of Jim Crow guns, and Jim Crow meant pack of the snarling attack of dogs. Today, while we're eating a delicious catfish in the Cock of the Walk, I thought about my Jim Crow childhood, where Black Americans lived in partial freedom until Martin Luther King, a slew among the Jim Crow monsters. And sometimes I wonder how America could have been called itself the land of liberty, with Jim Crow signs walked all over every restaurant and every other public place. Signs of the forcibly separated races is cheated in the inferior life of the people with colored skin. To me, those signs were saying to you, colored skin, your only freedom is to work as a servant in white America. The second thought occurred to me, unlike European Americans, ancestors, African Americans, and ancestors did not come to America looking for a home. Instead, they were forced from their African homes to come to America to work for better homes, to work better homes for the European Americans. While among the servant quarters, the African Americans did not come taking up the drive from America. Instead of the African Americans' ancestors talked of their native land and were sold to work in cotton fields and their field labor, free labor, earned tons of money for the white Americans and not a penny for Black Americans. Freedom after slavery freedom led to the Jim Crow laws that created the back style of the bus, the descendants of slaves. I rode in the back of the bus until in the mid-50s. I rode until Martin Luther King slew the Jim Crow forever. Shall be grateful for his outrageous, courageous victory. Slaves helped build America. They helped to build a White House, and they helped to build Wall Street. They also helped to build Charleston, Fort Sumner, Pensacola, Fort Pickens, all of the other forts that protected Americans. Slave supported economy. Slaves were paid naught for backing their for a backbreaking labor. Slaves were paid for naught for their backbreaking behavior. Their descendants would suffer from police billy clubs. Jim Crow, I will be there, forever grateful. Martin Luther King was slaying the Jim Crow and Jim Crow deaths. Improved the labor. My ancestors finally could choose any restaurant. I could sit in the front of the bus. I could enter into a public place. I could also grateful that my middle school grandchildren would know nothing about Jim Crow except what they have read about and seen on television or seen in museums. In Kelly Graham, Park of the Birmingham of Alabama, the Museum of the Kelly Instagram Park in Birmingham, where they saw the sculpture, angry, snarling police dogs attacking civil rights protesters. They would believe that angry police dogs were set loose upon humans. Did this happen for a real? Granddaughter asked. Did policemen let dogs act to attack poor people? To attack people? Yes, I said. It happened while I was growing up here. I told them slavery was practiced because I was born, but I was here through slavery, and went through slavery was practiced before I was born. I was born through the final days of Jim Crow. These were the days when they were colored Americans and white Americans. These were the days when the colored people were forced to sit in the back of the bus. These were the days when white people were to have colored people, where the white people were the haves and the colored people were have-nots. And certainly was not beautiful America were have-nots. Colored people would only sit in the back of the bus, while white people could sit anywhere they wanted. And if all the seats at the white section were taken, the black passengers would have to give their seats to the white passengers.
What year was they talking about? They talking about
It was-
Pensacola?
They were talking about Columbus. They were talking about in the mid-50s. The Jim Crow, they didn't give an exact year, but they said in the mid-50s.
Oh, okay, in the 50s. Okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we only got a few minutes left. Can I omit my reading time and we end early? Because
Okay.
okay. All right then. Well, I call you in a few minutes and have a wonderful evening. All right, Deacon Brown, we're gonna end now.
Okay, then.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you. I know I'll see you next Saturday, and if I might see you before then.
Okay.
I'll be there.
All right then, y'all have a good evening here.